and when you get a chance, you people must highlight it in your reports when you are having discussions with people. So anyway, coming back to the regions, and India has also started concentrating on the space and the space and scientific diplomacy, and a lot of these countries, big or small, in both the uh, regions, they have started connecting with ISRO for either production of their satellites or exchange of technologies or launching the satellites. And they have been collaborating with IITs as well in India. And when I was traveling across, I was in Bolivia and I met the space agency there, and I urged them to come and have a meeting with ISRO, and they came here, and I think something is working out with them. And with Africa, we have been launching their satellites as and when they have wanted us to, and we are helping them in the technology and information exchange of information. And they want mostly about agriculture. They want mostly data about the satellite images about the agriculture or drought. Like Mexico is trying to talk to us about satellite images related to water, climate, drought. That's what they told me, yeah, a few of these things. So we can, we need to highlight these, and I have been highlighting these in my reports. And even with Africa, I have been doing the same, and we need to talk about even the military diplomacy that we are having, especially with the African nations when they come here for training in our whether it is the officers training institute or exchange programs. They are here, and they are we have had some exchange, friendly ship visits have been happening in Africa. We need to have great relations with Africa, especially because of the piracy, and without their cooperation we cannot really deal with the menace of piracy in the region. So we need to we keep having the friendly visits. And the same with Latin America, there has not really been much in terms of military. If I remember, the little that I know, they have nothing. They really are not really interested. Maybe it's because of the distance. But yeah, at the IPSA level, that's India, Brazil, South Africa. We have had exercise, Air Force exercise. We have had, I think, the Army. There have been 2 exercises under that. The Navy, sorry. The Navy had an exercise with. And so we also need to concentrate on, textiles. And we have talked about agriculture. A lot of these countries in the region, especially in the Latin America, like I mentioned, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Peru, Colombia, they have a lot to offer to us as well. And so we can talk to them. We have been talking to them and discussing with them about how the kind of technologies that they have, how we can use it here, or how we can end up doing the contract farming with them, and how we can get it back here. And so that brings in the issue of connectivity, which people say is very poor. For everything that the Indian companies, they cite the connectivity, poor connectivity with the region. And I find that a little bit strange, because the first time I went to the region was in 2004, where it was very difficult to travel all the way to Brazil. I was like almost dying, literally, in the aircraft, long flights, lots of changes. But now, in the Emirates and other airlines have a lot of connections, and so the connectivity is not a big problem. But if you're expecting a flight directly from India into Panama or into Costa Rica, it's not really going to happen overnight. It's not, so we need to find ways of connecting, and yeah, the shipping takes a lot of time for the products to reach here. But then countries like Ecuador or Chile or I think Costa Rica, where we are getting our shrimps and other agriculture products, they're making ways, they're finding ways of transporting all that to India. So, and it comes in real good time. So yeah, so I'll stop here. So in case you have any questions, yeah. If I bored you, please apologies for that, because I'm just rambling, because I can see a lot of kids sleeping, so please don't sleep on me, because I have also woken up very early in the morning to come here all the way. Yeah. Yeah.
Ma'am, about the investments in Latin America by India, I think the Indian businesses are generally reluctant of investing outside.
Yeah.
And especially when there's no discourse of Latin America in the Indian media.
Yeah.
The state, as you said, is definitely slow and steady. What the journalist community can take an initiative in is create a discourse of Latin America in India, which is how the Indian public would get familiarized with their political situation.
Absolutely.
And maybe that is how the Indian businesses would find lesser risk in investing in Latin America. That would probably be an option.
You know what? I can only talk about me, myself, but I cannot comment on anyone else. So pardon me if I sound as if I'm blowing my own trumpet. But frankly speaking, like Suruchi ma'am just said, we seriously, there's not enough of meat to excite anyone. You understand? Unless I'm going to set up a manufacturing plant of a motorcycle or some car or some. I'm not going to excite anyone. Why will my editor be excited with, I'm just going to set up a plant? So, big deal. Like the other day, I interviewed the minister from Panama, and I tried to file a copy, and I did file it, but nobody found it exciting. So this is not to say that my boss doesn't want a story like that. It's just that it's not exciting for anyone. How do I make it exciting? So that's why I said, when we start talking about, specific sectors, agriculture, it's exciting. You understand what I mean? If I'm going into agriculture, or if I'm going into pharma, then if I'm going into, let's say, if tomorrow I write that India is going to sell BrahMos missile to Chile, that will excite everyone, which I have written, and each time I write that, each time I get 20 phone calls just asking me for more details. So there are certain areas which excite. But if you say कि ma'am, यार मैं तो वहाँ जा रहा हूँ कल sugar cane उगाने, there no one is going to get excited. But if I say I'm going there, I'll be doing pulses. I will grow them there, and I'll get them back into India as under the contract farming. That's going to excite. So, you cannot keep writing that again and again and again. Unless tomorrow I have, let's say, Shakira, inaugurating my manufacturing plant in, let's say, a place called Bolivia. Trust me, it will be seen in the paper. It will be seen in the paper.
Yeah. Other than you, how many people from India, how many journalists cover Latin America?
No one really covers it specifically unless there is some news.
So it's not a beat.
It's not a beat. It's not a beat.
And if it's not a beat, people are not paying a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's a region where people, like I said, it doesn't excite me. Unless I'm going to Cuba and I'm going to hand over 20 buses to them, Then, oh, we are going to hand over buses to them. Okay, let's talk about Ashok Leyland, because Ashok Leyland is the company which is going to hand over buses. That's how it gets into all the newspapers. But if you were asking me a question, Ms. Siddiqui, how many other journalists are covering the region as the region? No one. Sorry, no one.
But also there's a risk, like when you do a reporting of like foreign affairs, diplomatic relations, most of the time you're dependent on this government version, government sources.
Yes.
And that kind of, the media becomes like a arm of the government.
Absolutely.
So how do you address this?
So what I do is, the government gives it, especially when there are visits happening, then of course we go by what the government is saying. But besides the visit, if there's, I go to ambassadors, like the ambassador here, I went to talk to him and I was very honest with him. And I said, I want to, sort of give, right, now what's happening? The economy in Argentina is not doing very good. See, for me, from my perspective, it's not doing good. From his perspective as a diplomat, he's going to give me another angle. So, again, most of the time the conversations are off the grid. No one wants to discuss the bad side on record. And in today's day and age, everyone wants everything on record. It's very difficult. It's really, really difficult, which is why I have learned my lessons the hard way. I try to read and travel and see as much as I can. I'm not suggesting that tomorrow morning you pick up your backpack and start traveling. I did backpacking in the region. I don't know the language, but I did backpacking in the region, and I do it every year. I cover 4 or 5 countries. Now I've completed the region, so I don't know which is the region I'm going to pick up. But what I'm trying to say is you should read and talk and make notes each time somebody is telling you, which is why I said a menace like human trafficking in the region goes unnoticed, uncovered, unmentioned. Why? Because nobody wants to talk about it. It's a bad thing happening. And the tragedy is that nobody wants to talk unless some politician opens his mouth and suggests that, that many thousand people, Indians, are from Punjab, are in the Latin American region. Then everybody runs around, scurries around to find out what's happening, but nobody tells you what really is happening. One ambassador gave me a list, and after giving me a list, he says, don't talk about it. Now, my problem is that I need to highlight it, which is why I said that I would urge you people to talk about it with your professors while you're having discussions. You should be responsible about it. You should be very responsible because, lives are at stake. Again, about business, when you mention, every time I talk to an Indian businessman, how come you're not going there? Why are you not setting up there? And they say, oh, Ms. Siddiqui, connectivity is a problem. Oh, it's a long flight. Oh, we don't know the language. And then I come up with a silly answer, but I travel, and I travel as a backpacker. You're a businessman, you'll go first class. I'm going on a string budget, so I'm going to shoestring budget, so I'll go in an economy, but I still go because I'm curious. If only I had money in my pocket, I'll probably go and buy some business also there. But I have noticed one thing, that Indian investors are very slow. They don't think long term. They think, today we have done this, tomorrow we should get the fruit. It's not going to happen like that. Somebody cited an example of Procter and Gamble. One former ambassador from the region, Indian ambassador from the region, came and said, I asked him, I said, Excellency, what do you think I should highlight in my talk? So he said, you should just, remember one thing, the Indian businesses, they go there looking for instant results. It doesn't happen. They're very slow countries, and they're poor countries. India can play a huge role there. You go to a country like El Salvador, yes, there is violence. Yes, there is gang violence there. Yes, no doubt about it. But tell me a country where there is no violence. I mean, don't go into Denmark and Norway and Iceland or Greenland. Don't go there. but very active countries. Tell me where there is no violence. Everywhere there is violence. So you have to take the risk. Procter and Gamble, yeah, so this ambassador was giving me an example of Procter and Gamble, who went into the region when the World War II was happening. And they stuck around there in one particular country, not bothered about whether they should run away, whether they are going to get anything. They stuck around, and today they are, you know.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Let us just have your attention for a moment. So first of all, thank you so much for this insightful talk about the Latin American regions, and it really brings out the role of academia and how we can how we can bring the developing countries in the forefront. So I'm Ricky Mande, and I'm here to represent CALAX, the Center of African and Latin American Studies. So I'll just say a few words to give a brief introduction about our research center. So firstly, CALAX is a center that aims to achieve interregional understanding through policy-aimed research, dialogue, training, and we serve as a major hub for businessmen, diplomats, and policymakers in India and abroad. And our team includes young, enthusiastic, and ambitious students who not only spread knowledge but also gain and as well as spread knowledge through various activities like we do monthly newsletters, and we always engage in these South-South cooperation events across the country and JSU. And we also like to spread knowledge. Our research, our team has efficient ways of spreading knowledge in for the politics, economics, as well as the culture of countries like in Africa, Caribbean regions, Latin America, and their role with India and China. So I would really like people to check out our research center because it's really.
I keep checking out, by the way.
And thank you very much.
I keep checking out, and I keep thinking of how I can help you people in, sort of moving on, which is why I said as youngsters you have a lot of things to do. We will just come and give you our one-sided version, and you people are still young, age is on your side, you are, active minds, think, be careful, learn. There's so much to learn about the region, the world as a whole. Things are changing every day. Things are changing. Boundaries are changing. Laws are changing. So I look at your center and the newsletter that you share with us. It comes to me as well, and I read it and I share it on with other people. And wherever I can, I try to even take a print out and give it to them that you must read it. This is, young kids are doing this. For me, you're a kid, so I'll call you a kid, so no offense intended. And so, yeah, I do that. I do my bit, you do your bit. That's all I can say. Tell me.
Going up, my question is regarding the Indian businesses investing in Latin America. Firstly, don't we also have to see whether there's a demand for the product in that country? It's not necessary that what the Indian business is produced here, not necessary that the demand for the same product will be in that country. Secondly, we also have to look at the power of the consumers there, the purchasing power of the consumers there. So even if there is a demand, but however the consumers are not, they don't have enough resources to buy the products, there's no point in investing there. Also, thirdly, how important is it to look at the government of that country? Because if there's no political stability, won't it also affect our businesses?
Usually, since I have been covering, the country that I heard had problems was Colombia and
Chile.
It was Chile, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua. At a time when I actively started concentrating on the region. But in the recent past, the things are fairly good. They're very stable. Only very recently there's some trouble brewing in Brazil. Of course the gang wars are back in El Salvador, but they have always been there. They never went away. The tension was there, but it keeps erupting from time to time. But when you say whether the consumer has the power to, whatever we are going to sell, when you're setting up a manufacturing base, you're not going to sell it there only. You can use that country or that particular country as a gateway for the region, like Panama. For instance, I'm just giving an example of Panama. Why? Because it's a very recent visit. So I asked him, I said, why will I go and set up something back in office also in Panama? Why? Why should I go there? Unless I just want to go and see the Panama Canal, and that's the only excitement there. But besides that, he said you can use it as a gateway, and which is what I realized when I went into Guatemala or Nicaragua or El Salvador. These are the places which are poor. If you set up your plants, you're going to create jobs for people.
You can use a manual labor.
Yeah, you can use, and why not? You can create jobs for them, just like we are creating jobs. TCS is setting up its base and moved a lot of its business from the US into Mexico, and they are creating jobs. Parle G has set up its factory in Mexico. Why? Only to create, for them it's like a gateway into the region. They'll make biscuits in Mexico and sell it to other countries in the region, or maybe sell it in Africa or wherever. So these countries can be used as a gateway. They don't necessarily have to consume everything that we are going to produce or send from here, but we can use them as a gateway, and that gives us a leverage in these countries, because don't forget, we use these countries for voting power also when it comes to the United Nations. They are not only there for the business. This is one of the ministers told me, he said, "Oh, you are underestimating them. Come on, we need them. Please, you people should highlight. We need them because they have the voting powers in major groupings." So, yeah, it's important.
Ma'am, for country to be a gateway, political and economic stability is very much required, as my colleague just mentioned. So, if you look at World Economic Forum's report, it said that the Latin American region is experiencing a downfall in both political and economic stability since 2009. It also stated that Brazil is going through a political stability, Venezuela is going through both economic and political stability, banking recession is at its peak.
So that's the time when you haven't you heard something as distress sale? हम घर खरीदने जाते हैं, so we look for the house, where the owner is trying to sell it as desperately and as early as he can. So that's a distress thing. So you go and pick up assets there.
So isn't it like this is?
But then obviously you're not going to pick up an asset where there is a civil war going. I'm not suggesting that you go into South Sudan or some other country where there is a civil war at its peak. I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is that in poor countries you can go and pick up assets. It's your long-term investment. You go the right way. It's not going to end up into loss. It's like sometimes we buy property and we just leave it. We're not thinking today I have bought a house for 2 crores, so tomorrow morning I should get 5 crores. I should take this 2 crore house, forget it for 10 years, chill, relax, and 10 years later I start getting the returns. And as far as the political instability is concerned, Venezuela is going through a bad time, but we all know the reasons why, and I don't really have to specify that. But in Brazil, I'm sure Brazil has always been a very stable country. There's never really been a...
Question is, how do we tackle the insecurity among Indian businessmen? If I'm a businessman, I'm going to Venezuela to set up a factory. I don't know that...
You're not going there.
Yeah,
as a businessman, you wouldn't look at Venezuela, right? I'm just talking in real time. As a business person, I'm not going to enter Venezuela at all, because I know it's a bad situation there. People are running away. People are just dumping things and running away. But I will go to a country like, let's say, Guatemala, let's say, Colombia, where peace has returned. I will go into a country like Peru. Why will I pick up Venezuela? I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is, there are countries which may be seemingly looking as in political unrest. Argentina is going through a bad phase economically. They're doing pretty bad. Sorry, Your Excellency, I didn't mean it in a bad way, but that's what I read in the news. That's what I hear. That it's in a bad, the economy is really unstable.
And news drives out good.
So but also I have realized that some of the countries don't want the Indians to be there at all. So why will I go to a country which doesn't want me, which doesn't want my investment? I will go to a country which is friendly otherwise, but going through a bad phase right now, in the hope that tomorrow morning they will be perfectly okay, things will stabilize, like Brazil. It will stabilize. It's not going to be bad all the time. Venezuela, frankly speaking, I don't foresee a quick, peace coming there tomorrow. I'm not foreseeing that. Sorry.
More than business, can we look at India in future as a more of mediator of political discussion?
No, India doesn't like to interfere in the internal matters of any country. You know it.
But that happened in Maldives and Nepal, and the Maldives government.
You know what happened.
Yeah.
So we don't interfere anywhere.
Ma'am, this is how we are losing Africa out, and like we crib about it that China has set up businesses there and everything. But it is because we were so reluctant in the past. In fact, this is the high time that we take an aggressive approach with businesses in Latin America.
We have never been aggressive. I'm sorry to cut you midway, but we have never been aggressive in any country. Never. It has never been the policy of India to be aggressive. We do it our way. We feel comfortable doing it slowly. We don't want to, and again, and this is my personal experience, okay? Most of the things that I've shared here is my personal experience, which is why I like to travel. The countries that I have been to in Africa, they say that in a way we are glad that you are not behaving like China, okay? And however, we wish that India does more. So when I ask them, what do you wish? What is it that you want? Our Prime Minister has visited you. Our Prime Minister is traveling. Our President has been traveling. Our Vice President has been traveling. What is it that you want? We want more. Give us more. So India is trying to give more, but then we don't have that much to give. Our funds are also very limited. Our priorities are more. We need to create it for us, for our people before we go out giving. But we are giving.
I think
there's a question here. I'm coming back to the question of coverage in the media of the region. You said it's neglected because it's not exciting. So what do you think needs to change in newsrooms for editors to take this region seriously?
There's no one-line answer to this. Like I said, if tomorrow Shakira is going to launch something, or if I say Ramos is going to be sold to Chile or to Peru, or some shipbuilding project has come to India from the region, those things make news. But otherwise, the political unrest in Brazil, did you see it making news on the front page of any newspaper? No. Why? Because it's not really going to have an immediate impact on us. No. So there are certain countries when things happen there, they impact us. Like anything happens in the US, it's going to impact us. In China, impact us. EU, impact us. Latin America, Africa, unless there is something majorly happening. Like in Colombia, when the peace accord was signed, it was covered in all the newspapers. Right? Because we are buying food from there, and so for us it's important that things are okay, there's peace there, and when there is peace, our businesses do well. That's how sometimes it makes news. Or in Peru, if Peru floods, did it make news? No. But if we are going to buy gold from Peru, if it touches all-time high, it's a news, and it gets covered. But not on a daily basis, just like China, Russia, they get covered every day, but not these countries. And yeah, things are changing, and I'm sure it will take another 2-3 years, things will change. As and when a lot of Indian businesses do well in those countries, it's going to change. It has to change. Yeah.
I'm sorry to forgive you again, but it is also speculated that in the CBS organization, which goes by the name of Huma, controls most of the local markets in Latin America. They have.
I have never heard this.
I read this. I came across this article which said that Huma is primarily eliminating its competition and it partners with some of the locals to create.
To be honest, I have never heard this. I'm sorry, but
Excuse me, ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am, as you mentioned before, India and Africa are together in the military and defense setup of Africa. In many countries like Kenya and Nigeria. And Boko Haram has always attacked military bases in Nigeria, which affects India as well. So what is India doing to counter Boko Haram in some ways?
The little that I know about this Boko Haram situation, there have been talks at different levels between the governments, and India is, whatever little India can do in terms of helping them out or guiding them, they have been doing it. But beyond that, nobody has really shared much with us about
It's not just military bases that are being attacked.
Yeah, I know, but they have
People abducted by Boko Haram.
I know all the women that whole number of women that were abducted, and no one knows where they are. India has not really, the little information that I have, India has not really sort of.
Do you think that India will do anything about it?
We can discuss this off the grid. Sorry.
On a very informal note, do we find that to create new partners, that the diplomatic circle of India is very lengthened? Where China is buying out partners, buying out seaports, India takes a lot of time because of its political.
Because we don't have the money. It is simple. We cannot buy, and it's not so easy to just pick up a bag full of money and going tomorrow. I'm not one of those people who has sold my agriculture land to go and buy a 20 crore property. I need to collect my money, I need to save it, I need to make sure that I take care of my domestic policies first before I go running around buying assets here and there and everywhere. It's a very simple situation. And why should I go and bags full of money to anyone? Come on, give them the dignity. They're developing countries. They also want to live in a dignified manner. You want to help them slowly, and that's what we want to do. We want to help them slowly, and the Prime Minister has been saying it. He said it at the BRICS summit also recently in Johannesburg. We don't want to jump in with bags full of cash and buy things left, right, and center. It may come across as if we are going slow, yeah, but in these regions, the idea is they also want to be respected. And I'm not referring to any other country anywhere, because I don't want to make any comment like that. All I know is that when we talk about Africa or Latin America or the Caribbean region, whatever they want in whichever way we can, we have been helping them in setting up their Center of Excellence, Center for or IT parks, or helping them with technologies in various sectors. And we'll continue to do that.
So I think from here we are not in a time to take any more questions.
Sure.
So, before we conclude the event, I would like to request the Ambassador of Argentina and Delhi, who is kindly present here, to say something.
Thank you so much. Just we'll take a couple of minutes. I think that what Huma has said is very accurate in respect to some of the issues, particularly the lack of knowledge that there is in India about the region. And I'm going to talk particularly about Latin America, and I will not mess with Africa, although I've been posted there for a few years. In the case of Latin America, there is a lack of understanding and there is a lack of knowledge of what's going on. And even there might be some instability in some of the countries. If you take note of how the Indian businesses have been developing in the region, they are all reinvesting and they are all increasing their opportunities there. So I think that it's also a kind of instability in which you need to know if it affects or not affects your business. One thing that I want to stress of what Huma said is the question of the gateway in the region for the investments that you have. And this is part of the lack of knowledge that there is in India. You have a 1.4 billion market here. It might not be developed for the whole population, but with the growth that you're getting, you will be growing the middle class very fast and very soon. So with the market that you have, it's very difficult to look at some other markets, because we are markets, take the case of Argentina, it's a market of 40 million people. If you take Guatemala, it's 5-6 million people. So if you are going to do an investment, you will look the possibility of doing it in India first, because you have the market here. If you're going to do it in Latin America, I believe that you have to go through the analysis that Huma was making. If you get to Argentina, you can jump from Argentina to the Mercosur. If you're taking that kind of approach, you're talking about 300 million people. So there it becomes the scale economy, it becomes rather different than the ones that you take country by country. So there is a very important opportunity for us, and we think that we need to develop more the relation with India. It's not that we are having next year our 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations with India. So we have been working with the government of India since a long time, and even before the diplomatic relations with India, we were having representation in India even during a long time before that. So it's not that we have not been politically connected to India. We have been working a lot, particularly in what was mentioned here, South-South cooperation, and in all the work that is being done through international organizations, particularly in the developing countries associations. So we politically have a very good relation with India. We are very proud of that relation. We think that it doesn't have its trade counterpart. It's much more a political relation than an economic or cultural relation. I think we have to work much more on that, because if we don't work on that kind of promotion of the countries, it's going to be very difficult for businessmen or even for consumers in India to think in consuming something coming from Argentina if you don't even know that it exists. So it's part of the work that we are trying to do. And I think that particularly at this point in time, and with a country of the size of India, one of the best ways of doing it is through you. Young people, universities, and people that are interested in foreign relations or international relations, and that have the opportunity of reading, of understanding, of seeing what's going on. You're the future. If we don't concentrate in the future, we're lost. So I think that that's the best way of going through it. I've never heard really the question that you posed on Hezbollah. For me, it's very, very difficult to understand. Hezbollah has had its bearings in Latin America, and that's for sure. But that they are dealing with the governments, that makes me really surprised. Concerning human trafficking, that it's a very important point. The trend that we have noticed is that there is an increase of people growing from the region. And this, unfortunately, it's not only the case of India. The problem is that most of us have embassies in India and don't have in some other countries in the region. And particularly with one of your neighbors, we are getting a lot of people trying to get into the region through India. And it's not only Indians. We have a very stable community of Punjabis in Argentina. It's one of the most important communities that we have in Argentina. Not that the presence is too high, but there are a few of them there. So there is a lot of Punjabis trying to go, but it's not mainly a problem for us. It's much more what we are receiving from some neighbors through India than from India itself. And I think that we have to work in some areas so as to get to the level that two countries of the size of Argentina and India deserve. Yes, what caused my attention is that even though Argentina has been in the chair of the G20 this year, the press has not reflected anything about that. Just a few things. The only one that we have is Huma sometimes writing about us. But in terms of visits, half the cabinet of India has gone to Argentina this year. Yeah. Because of the G20, it's not, but even though we have that circumstances, it's not reflected in the media. And that's something that I think you need. We have a say that our national dance is called tango. And there is a say that goes like, you need two for tango. You cannot dance alone. And so I believe that in this regard, there are problems on the Indian side and there are problems on our side that we have not been able to put the relation at the point that we were. Last comment concerning the difference between China and India. I do agree that the different approaches are very clear on the table. The Chinese is a very much aggressive approach to its relations. But there is one issue that I have to mention and that it's good that you keep in mind. If you take the case of Argentina, tariffs, trade tariffs, not to talk about barriers, let's talk just tariffs. Tariffs on average are 5 times in India than it is in China. And that's not asking for more money, that's not asking for anything. It's asking for opportunities for our producers also to get into India. And the way you're moving your tariffs, it makes it impossible. So that also doesn't help. In the case of India, they have it, as I told you, the average in India, it's about 70%, and the average of our products in China, it's about 14. So that makes a big difference. Not only the question of aggression, because they are not. Also, the aggression depends on the recipient country. So you have to also bear that in mind. We don't feel that aggression from China, but it's much more easy for our businessmen to get into China than to get into India. Thank you.
So thank you very much, and now request Professor Goldstein to extend a vote of thanks and give a little token of appreciation from Jindal University.
First, I guess, let me give the token. It's the first opportunity I've had to do this. Okay. Thank you. I know, personally, I learned an enormous amount. I probably learned more than anyone else in the room. Very fascinating. And I just want to thank you for a candid and incisive assessment and covering parts of the world that merit much more attention than they're getting. And that's been a consistent topic of my study and speech. I will be quoting you and you in future speeches. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I guess.
So I think we are ready to close the event here. Thank you very much for
It's 11:30 on the dot, but that clock is fast.
Yeah, I just
we're on time. We're journeying.
I have another meeting. So thank you all for listening to me very patiently. If I have bored you, please pardon me. We also used to get bored when our lecturers used to come and give us all kinds of boring lectures. But good luck to all of you. And do keep in touch. Anything I can do for you at any time, don't hesitate.
Some of our students might be like interested in exchanging some very kind of jobs. So it will be good if you can say it with us.
Yeah.